Well, as I mentioned before, it was I was in the 8th grade most of 1964. And for some reason, I paid attention to that campaign, and I fell in love with Barry Goldwater.
Mm-hmm.
The philosophy of Barry Goldwater just, I don't know why. Conservatism has often been talked of as a tripartite system of ideas. The three-legged stool is what you'll often hear.
Yeah, back in the day.
Back in the day, the three-legged stool meant this. It meant robust opposition to Soviet communism.
Mm-hmm.
It meant free market economics. And it meant... today it means traditional values. But then it wasn't really traditional values. I mean, traditional values were held by everybody, including left-wing Democrats.
Yeah.
There was no argument about abortion back in '64, except on the extreme left. But the third leg of the stool was states' rights.
Oh, really?
Decentralization.
Okay.
So he carried the banner of decentralize via states' rights, essentially, capitalism, and bomb the commies.
Right. Yeah.
And I don't know why I fell in love with him. First of all, he was a magnificent spokesman. I mean, he really knew how to give a speech. Mm-hmm. And he was a charming guy. He was very personable, kind of Trumpian in a way.
Yeah.
But, very, very handsome, much more so than Trump. Mm-hmm. But I wouldn't call him charismatic, but he was close.
Mm-hmm. Goldwater, what circles did he run in? I know a little bit. But...
Well, he became a point on the GOP radar way back in 1960. Many people wanted him to run against Nixon. Mm-hmm. But he refused to do it. He was just an Arizona cowboy. His family had been involved with the Goldwasser department store empire that was Phoenix-based. And... he kind of grew up with the frontier. I mean, Arizona became a state in 1912. I don't believe he had. I don't know when he was born, but it was probably about. He was probably born when Arizona was a territory. But he goes back that far. But anyway, for whatever reason, I became completely infatuated with the guy. And I began to began to read National Review assiduously. 2 years later, I began a subscription to National Review that I kept until about 2002 or 3.
It's a long time.
I only gave it up because they, at that point, had given up on conservatism. Mm-hmm. In my opinion, mm-hmm. They were emphatically and just out loud talking about the glories of the American Empire.
Yeah.
They never did that before. They never. Anybody that accused America of being an empire, no, we're a republic. What are you talking about, you damn leftists? There's nothing imperial about us at all. We're just a good old-fashioned Roman republic. But they began to tout the empire. Mm-hmm. And I said, I've had enough of this crap.
Right.
So I quit. But I subscribed mostly because it was a good journal. Mm-hmm. And it was a way of keeping tabs with the opposition. because I grew out of conservatism pretty quickly.
Right.
Now in 1966, I don't know when I began. I joined an organization called the Teenage Republicans. It was a high school Republican group. I don't remember any meetings, but there must have been. It was at least a paper organization, because I remember as a high school student, I began to get involved in gubernatorial campaigns, and I went to Des Moines, Iowa. I was living in Iowa City, and did volunteer work for one of the candidates, one of the 3 gubernatorial candidates, and was very much chagrined by the results of the 66 election. The Republicans did quite well in 66, but they were not Goldwater Republicans. And I had no use for anybody that wasn't ultra-conservative.
Right.
I mean, if you didn't sound like Goldwater, Ronald Reagan sounded like Goldwater. So I was aboard his train.
Yeah.
But very few others. I mean, that was the election that elected George Bush Sr. to Congress.
Okay.
And he was one of those that was highly touted by the magazine. And, I had no use for him, had no use for Richard Nixon, had no use for, any of these Republican poobahs.
Okay.
But anyway, so it happened that I went to college in the fall of 68, became involved immediately with the college Republicans. My little college of Cornell in Mount Vernon, Iowa, had an affiliate there. So I was active, and I don't remember that we accomplished anything, but we held regular meetings, and I was always kind of on the outs because I was on the extreme right of that coterie.
In a libertarian sense, you'd say? Or?
Yeah, well, remember, I was not a libertarian.
Right.
I was becoming increasingly imbued with the philosophy of Barry Goldwater. I mean, I was reading the kind of stuff that he propounded. I was reading National Review magazine, twice a month it came, and reading every issue and searching out, the most conservative voices that were being published there. And while I was at Cornell, it was either 68 or maybe the fall of 69. I was there for 2 years. I was in the bookstore one day, and I ran into a book. I had heard about Ayn Rand before,
right,
in high school, but never talked to anybody about her. I knew she was a kind of a big deal, but I knew nothing about her. But the subtitle, look at that.
The Capitalism, the Unknown Ideal.
Yeah, that grabbed me immediately, and I bought the book. And if I wasn't a libertarian before reading it, I was certainly a libertarian after I read it.
Okay.
And I read it, in a couple of sittings. I was so... It's just a book of essays. Ayn Rand wrote most of them. Greenspan wrote a couple.
Okay.
Brandon wrote a couple.
Yeah.
But it was a huge influence. In the fall of 70, I transferred to McAllister College in St. Paul, Minnesota, and was involved in the Republican College Republicans there, which was a much more vestigial, even though it was a larger college, a much more vestigial organization. But there was one guy that I hooked up with who was, quite bright. And he and I really got along and talked a great deal about political philosophy. And in the summer of, let me see, it must have been the summer of 71. He went to a Young Americans for Freedom convention in Houston. Came back with all kinds of materials that I just ate up. He came back with Reason magazine. He came back with at that time there were 3 or 4 competitors to Reason that had the circulation of Reason, not the circulation of Reason today, but they had 800 or 900, maybe 1,000 subscribers, something like that.
And Reason at the time was Randian. Were those other publications?
Well, Randian.
They were pretty objective.
Yeah,
at least Reason was back in the early
Larry
days.
Friedlander, was he the founder of the magazine? I think it
Maybe.
was. I think he was. And I don't remember what his background was, but in those days, people came to libertarianism in really one of 3 ways. Almost the vast majority through Ayn Rand. Secondarily, maybe Milton Friedman, but probably Robert Heinlein was the second most important conductor toward libertarian idea, toward the libertarian movement. He funneled lots of people into libertarianism. And David Nolan was much influenced by Heinlein. But like Nolan, I was really a Goldwater guy. But anyway, he came back from Houston with this whole panoply of materials. One of those materials was this committee to organize a Libertarian Party. And I looked it over. I joined some other organizations. Somehow I didn't get around to joining that group until the middle of December. And here it was. I knew about this organization in early September. Or at least I think I did. He came back with sewing materials. It may have taken me a month to even find it within them. I don't know. But that's how I discovered the proto-libertarian party. But it was in, I think, the spring of 72 that I was I majored in history, and took a seminar in the spring of 72 that, again, this is a book of essays, just like this Ayn Rand book. But on page 503...
And Bruce, what's the title of that book?
The Great Society Reader, The Failure of American Liberalism. These are mostly left-wing critiques of the Great Society. Some of them cannot be described as left-wing, and one of them can really be described as right-wing. You can make a case that Murray Rothbard is right-wing, even back then.
Really?
Yeah. You can argue both ways on Murray. At least certainly back in the 60s.
Sure, yeah.
But there he is, a very short essay in this book, and that's how I discovered Murray Rothbard.
Okay.
And I knew about the Libertarian Party, but then I learned about Rothbard and I began reading Rothbard books.
Okay. So you'd say Rand probably converted you to libertarian, you'd say?
Yeah, I would think so.
And you'd say libertarian non-objectivist, I think.
Yeah, hers was a philosophy of life.
Yes.
And I could never get into okay, the epistemology might have something to say for it, but who gives a care about epistemology after all? I'm not a I'm not a philosopher. Who cares about metaphysics? Even aesthetics, big deal. Political philosophy is all that matters. I was always a Blockian.
You're talking about Walter Block.
Talking about Walter Block. A thin libertarian. I was always opposed to the Reason magazine kind of libertarianism.
Which is a
libertarian lifestyle sort of nonsense.
Okay.
I don't believe in any of that crap. Walter Block has the right message. It's just a political philosophy. There's much more to life than libertarianism.
Sure, yeah. No, was Block, were you aware of him early on?
I don't know when I became aware of him. He was a part of the living room society of Rothbard, yeah. So it must have been at a very early date.
I gotcha, okay. Yeah.
I've never read any major work by Block, but I've followed him to some degree.
Sure. Okay. So you're in this movement early on. It's starting to develop. How would you characterize the character of this kind of Libertarian Party in embryo? I guess before it even came to be.
Well, I didn't know anything about it. I think I got David Nolan's wife was doing secretarial duty in those days, and she wrote to me and
wrote to you personally.
Well, I mean, she took my money.
Okay.
And she had a form letter, of course, that she signed, or maybe he signed.
Okay.
I don't know. But almost immediately upon receiving my membership in the committee, I get this mailing that the Libertarian Party has now organized. We're going full steam ahead, and we're beginning to plan a summer convention in Westminster, Colorado. And when I was a part of the committee, well, actually, when I joined the committee, I think it was the middle of December. She sent me, I don't know, maybe 50 sheets of paper of an announcement. It was a flyer. It was not a brochure, but it was a kind of a poster. It was a small 8x11 poster that I was told, hey, put this on all your college bulletin boards, put this on telephone poles, put it, anywhere you can post with thumbtacks, put it up. So I went around and did the duty. I still have a number of those sheets still remaining, and Karen Ann Harlow's. We were in contact, 3 or 4 years ago, and I told her of all the stuff that I had, and strangely enough, there was almost nothing that she had not already discovered. So I don't remember anything that I had, frankly, that she didn't also have.
Okay.
So I don't know that I contributed much, if anything, to her collection. But anyway, let's see what next transpired. Those were heady days. In those days, Nolan was sending out a newsletter every month. I mean, it wasn't much, but it was newsy.
This is a personal newsletter?
No, the newsletter to everybody who joined the Libertarian, the newly formed Libertarian Party.
For the party.
I mean, it wasn't organized in any real way.
Yeah.
It was still kind of a committee to organize. I mean, the committee to organize the party was just a kind of toe in the water. We're going to put our finger in the water here. We're going to see how many people are big on the idea. If the response is positive enough, we'll go ahead with it. Okay, he got a positive enough response by the end of December of 71 to go ahead with it. But of course, it wasn't organized until a convention met, and they, elected duly authorized, officers and whatnot. I mean, it was his own proprietorship until that summer convention in Westminster. I didn't attend it. By that time, my parents were living in North Carolina, and I spent the summers there, and going to Colorado was completely out of the question. But I put a Hospers and Nathan bumper sticker on my father's car, took a picture of it. I don't know where that photo is. I think I still have it somewhere. Certainly never threw it away, that's for sure. But I attended my first convention in '76 in Washington, D.C. That was a lot of fun. And I think I've attended, I don't know, a dozen since then, probably. I became a member. I moved to Tennessee. Actually, I was a co-founder of the North Carolina Libertarian Party. For some reason, the North Carolina Libertarian Party was one of the very last that was organized. In the summer of '74, after 2 aborted attempts at organizing. In those days, in order for a state to organize, you had to get 10 prospective members, willing to sign a charter and join up in some fashion, become national members and whatnot. And we tried Bert Wiener and I, a friend that I had met in Charlotte. I was living in Charlotte, North Carolina in the summer of '74. And made 2 stabs at it. The third time, we got at least 10 people, maybe 11 or 12, and we organized. And as I say, by that time, there were only 2 or 3 states left. And then I moved to Tennessee, immediately joined the Libertarian Party there. And I don't know what happened. Didn't stay in Tennessee very long. Went back to North Carolina and remained fairly active. Was not an officer there. I was not an officer anywhere. It wasn't until I moved to Atlanta, Georgia in 78, 77, 78, joined the Georgia Party, became active. I think I was an officer. And I eventually conceded to run and become the chairman of the state party for a couple of years.
This is in Tennessee?
No, this is in Georgia.
Georgia, okay.
This was in the early 80s.
Okay.
I was the chairman of the party in Georgia at the time of the Bergland campaign in '84. So I guess it was I probably elected in '82, and it was a 2-year term, so I was finished about the time of the Bergland election.
We'll go back a little bit. That first presidential campaign, did that cause a stir, you'd say, or?
Well, when Tony Nathan got an electoral vote, you better believe they caused a stir.
Yeah.
I mean, that was amazing. And that was, today, I don't think it would have been announced, given the cancellation culture that we live in. But the 3 networks all dutifully reported on the news that this Virginia so-called Nixon delegate decided to go rogue and he voted for McBride and Nathan. And that was reported on the nightly news.
Did the candidates' personal lives, was that very known? Because McBride was a gay man.
I did not know that McBride. That's news to me. I don't believe I knew that he was gay. I knew that he was unmarried, but that doesn't mean gay. At least, but I don't think it does. I'm unmarried. I'm not gay.
Sure. The party has just said that that he was. That's all. That's what I've.
Well, that's very interesting because you will remember that. Well, I think you know as much about Libertarian Party history as I do, and I lived through it. But in the convention, not the second convention I attended. Where was that? Of course, the first was Washington, D.C. That was 76. 75 was the big New York. 76. 77, was that that must have been the Boston Convention. I was there. I was there in 77. And conventions were always held in odd years because it took a lot of work to get ballot access. So that had to have been the Boston Convention. And no, I'm something's failing. McBride ran for president in 76. And there was a big falderall about his vice presidential candidate. I guess I wasn't it. That must have occurred at the 75 New York convention. That would have been where he was nominated.
Yeah, and just to correct myself, I was talking about the 72 John Hospers.
Okay.
He was a gay man.
I see. You mean he was outwardly gay? He was admittedly gay in 72?
I don't know about that. But I think he might have been.
I know there would have been no libertarian opposition to a gay presidential candidate in 72. Now, earlier than that, I'm sure there would have been. But by 72, by the time the Libertarian Party was organized, the Stonewall riots had occurred. Mm-hmm. And, everybody but the benighted right, and of course the old-fashioned liberal Democratic Party, were tolerant of gays. Mm-hmm. Not in a gay marriage or anything of that kind, of course. But they were at least, they no longer wanted to arrest them.
I gotcha, yeah. And
in 64, you might know of the Walter Jenkins affair.
It sounds familiar.
There was a man in the that worked for the Johnson. He was not a major league figure in the Johnson campaign, as I remember. I mean, he wasn't living in the West Wing, so to speak. He wasn't one of the 4 or 5 most important advisors, but he was an advisor to Johnson, and he was caught in a bathroom. He was arrested.
This does ring a bell.
And he was summarily fired by Johnson, and there was absolutely no tolerance for that kind of activity. It would be just as if somebody had been caught diddling a 10-year-old boy. The police come upon a guy in a park who was fondling a 10-year-old.
That was how bad it was.
He would be arrested immediately, and he would be dismissed from virtually any position he was. I suppose if he was working as a janitor, he might be able to retain his job. But he could not retain respectable employment any more than than a child molester could now.
So it sounds like in the 70s.
But you know that McBride was faced with a vice presidential candidate. You know, back in those days, in fact, it's still true, the presidential candidate does not choose the vice president in the Libertarian Party. In fact, that was true until FDR. Can you believe that? That's something I only learned a few months ago.
Yeah, it's pretty amazing, yeah.
Only beginning with FDR was the president involved in choosing his running mate. Mm-hmm. It was a delegation.
Okay.
Just like it is now in the libertarian circles.
Yeah.
Anyway, the libertarians were about to nominate an outwardly gay California delegate.
Is this 76?
In 70, must have been 75.
75.
Yeah, at the New York convention.
Okay.
And McBride said, was that if he had not already been nominated, everybody knew he would be nominated because he had no real opposition. I mean, he was our star at the electoral vote. We've never done that since. Mm-hmm. And McBride said, I will not run with a gay man. I will not run with a homosexual. And he stuck to his guns. And that homosexual was denied the vice presidency in favor of Bergman. Mm-hmm. Anyway, you were about to ask me something.
Yeah, and Tony Nathan, I believe, went on to form organization of libertarian feminists, something like that. I'm
not sure that I think Fran Youngstein in New York City was actually behind that.
Okay, she was involved in something.
She was involved in it. Oh yeah, she was a very important personage.
Okay.
But I don't think she was the titular leader. I think Fran Youngstein was.
Okay. So overall, how would you characterize the 70s in terms of?
Oh, it was a completely optimistic decade. Sure. We've never seen the growth. I mean, on a year-by-year basis, we were exploding. By 1978, can't even think. I want to say Crane, not Crane, but
Ed Clark?
Ed Clark. Yeah, Ed Clark. Ed Clark was running for governor of California. And he did magnificently. I mean, he got, 5% of the votes, something like that. Unbelievable. I mean, we've never done that since, at least in California. Mm-hmm. We've done that in a few states, but never there. So it was going along swimmingly. I mean, it was one triumph after another. And by that time, Nolan was writing. He was making these prognostications about, in 10 years, we're going to elect a congressman. And he had all of these scenarios that he put down in print. It was quite humorous. I mean, I found it humorous. He didn't mean it as a joke. He was quite serious.
And what were the nature of these exactly?
Well, he would go on to spin these scenarios about how we would become mainstream. And he was predicting, by such and such a date, if present trends continue, we're going to be here, and then we're going to be there.
Okay.
So he was leading the band.
How would you characterize the ideological alignment in the 70s?
Well, it was as radical as it probably ever got. I mean, in 72, it wasn't. It certainly wasn't dominated by anarchists. That's for sure. But in 74, in Dallas, you know of the Dallas Accord. Anarchism had become a significant minority of the party, so much so that it was written into the the bylaws or not statement of principles. But anyway, it was, I think it was written in the bylaw. It's not a bylaw thing. Anyway, it was a very important piece of the platform, that's for sure. That anarchists had a place in the party, that they were libertarians as much as a minimal statist, as a night watchman statist.
Yeah, I'm just
which is kind of how I characterize myself at the time.
A minarchist.
Not more than a minarchist.
Okay.
I mean,
a
member of a advocate of the night watchman state, meaning that the government had no business doing anything other than basically what Ayn Rand had outlined. In other words, no taxation.
Wouldn't that be
everything would be financed voluntarily?
Right. Wouldn't that be minarchism?
Well, yeah, I guess it's the same thing as minarchism.
Okay.
Yeah.
And I'm just going to.
But it's certainly not classical liberalism, as the party became eventually.
Sure. Okay. Evolved into
it evolved into it.
I'm just reading here from Wikipedia. The Dallas Accord was an implicit agreement made at the 1974 Libertarian National Convention to compromise between larger minarchist and smaller anarcho-capitalist factions by adopting a platform that explicitly did not say whether it was desirable for the state to exist.
That's right.
So then, is there any more in the 70s, or should we move on to the 80s?
I can't, I mentioned my participation in the Boston Convention. Then there was arguably the largest convention the Libertarian Party has ever held. Arguably. It's quite possible that the last one was the biggest one. But if the last one was not the biggest one,
and when you're saying the last, is that 2022 you're speaking of?
Yeah, I guess it was 2020. Yeah, it wasn't 2020 because that was an abortion. There were only very few people attended in person. I think there were maybe 600, something like that. At most, maybe 400. I don't know.
Right.
But this last convention was attended by well over 1,000. And likewise, the Anaheim Convention of '79 was the high mark in libertarian conventions until the 2022 convention.
How many attended this?
It was on the order of 14, 15, 16, 1700, something like that.
Okay, gotcha. Now, going into the 80s, it's kind of my understanding there started to be some rifts.
Yeah, initially, I mean, the Clark campaign, David Nolan and Murray Rothbard completely demolished when the votes were in. The day after the election, they began denouncing that whole campaign as being low-tax liberalism. Actually, they were rumbling about it during the campaign.
Okay.
But it didn't become really loud and explicit until it was over.
Okay.
And they had no use for low-tax liberalism, and that was the theme of the Clark campaign.
Okay. Now, did Rothbard and Nolan, did they get along, or?
I believe they did. Yeah, I don't think there were any problems there.
Okay.
I don't think they were, best buds.
Sure, but they.
Yeah, but I don't think there was acrimony.
Okay.
And they were on the same side. They became beginning in 1980, there was the incipient, the party divided during and immediately after that came between the so-called craniacs and the others. I don't know whether they had a name.
Moderates and radicals, essentially.
Well, yeah, kind of, but even though I considered myself at that time to be a very mainstream libertarian.
Mm-hmm.
But I was always during the 80s anyway, I was very much of the opinion that we had to reach people where they were. You touch base with where they're standing, and you talk them into your position. Mm-hmm. You don't rail at them. You don't impress them with rhetoric or with philosophy or with any kind of radicalism. And I was very much a part of the Crane I was not a part of the Crane machine because I was a nobody. I mean, I wasn't. I had no leadership role
at that time. Yeah.
Yeah, right. But I was a fellow traveler of the Craniacs. I opposed Berglund in '83 vociferously. I went to the '83 New York Convention, the most rancorous convention in libertarian history.
Now, Berglund, was he more radical than?
Well, yeah, he was on the He was the Rothbardian.
Okay.
And really, that's really what the two factions were: the Craniacs, mm-hmm. the Ed Cranes, mm-hmm. and his machine, and the Rothbardians.
And
Berglund was certainly Rothbardian, and I was a great admirer of Rothbard.
Yeah.
However, I didn't cotton to his strategy and tactics. I thought he was just a bit brusque. Mm-hmm. I thought we needed I thought we needed to
more diplomacy.
Yeah, we needed to appeal to a classical liberal element.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Recognizing that these people were not libertarians. But, a political party is a coalition of all kinds of people, mm-hmm. including fellow travelers that are not really in the groove.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Now, Crane, was he Koch-backed?
Oh, yes. Okay. He was Koch-backed. Yeah. And I was very much a Ravenel delegate. He was running for president, mm-hmm. as was Berglund. Mm-hmm. It was reasonably close election.
How much influence did the Kochs have in the 80s?
Well, after the '83 convention, after the defeat of Ravenel, uh-huh. the Kochs left the Libertarian Party
because
they never returned.
Okay, and
they never returned. However, there were large elements of the Koch machine that continued, mm-hmm. but not the Kochs, not the billionaires. We no longer had that kind of money, mm-hmm. even though we did pick up a good bit of not all the so-called Kochtopus, not all the Craniacs left the party.
Okay.
In fact, probably mm-hmm. less than half of them did.
Okay.
There was another division later in the 80s surrounding the Paul campaign, I believe.
Okay.
Where a number of that was probably we probably lost more party members in '89 than we did in '83 because that was another big election year. Mm-hmm. We were Ron Paul was running, and he was already he was a congressman, or he had been a congressman.
And this is 1988.
This was '88. It was the '87 convention. Unfortunately, I did not attend that convention. It would have been a great one. Mm-hmm. And I gave my support to Russell Means, the Indian
activist. Yeah.
Yeah. And if you read his biography, I mean, he very clearly was a libertarian. He was not an opportunist. He was much, well, of course he was an opportunist, but he was much more than an opportunist. He was genuine. And Ron Paul pulled it off, and I don't remember the nature of the squabble in '89, but a lot of the Ron Paul people left the party. I think Ron Paul brought a lot of people into the party when he ran. Lou Rockwell, for example, had no use for the party, but he did it as a favor to Ron Paul. But people like Rockwell couldn't stand the sight of a hippie or a latter-day hippie. I mean, they were not hippies anymore, but they were long-haired maggots nonetheless.
According to
him.
Yeah, sure. Okay.
And he had no use for that. And he quit the party. Bert Blumert was a financial genius who was sort of running the treasury of the party at the time. He left. A lot of people left in '89 because Paul really left. Paul didn't stay around.
Leaving because it was seen as too left to...
Well, I guess because they all had Rockwellitis.
And they just wanted to get away from the left lane from their perspective.
Well, it might have been ideological. It might have been purely aesthetic. I don't know. Probably both.
Yeah. Messaging and okay. And then I guess you'd say in '83 it was probably a lot of moderates leaving due to the...
Yeah, it was people like myself, Craniacs, who believed that we could not... we just don't want to give a platform to people as we're knocking on doors. You have to reach people where they're at. And the platform is just too radical as an introduction, icebreaker. That's the word I'm looking for.
Yeah. So it kind of seems, and you can put your own input, of course, that the '80s are kind of bringing up maybe more, in one way, a more radical turn, but also maybe a little turn to the left as well, maybe?
No, I don't think the party ever was more left than it was in the middle to late 70s.
Okay.
I think that was the apogee of the leftward leaning. I mean, the Coctopus brought the party to the right. I mean, just listen to the squalling of Rothbard. I mean, Rothbard thought that the party had gone right.
What were some of the major...
Well, they just thought that libertarianism needed to be explained as a political philosophy, come hell or high water.
This is Rothbard's view.
Rothbard's view, and the Rothbardian view was that low-tax liberalism is a interesting bumper sticker, but it completely it misfires. You're not going to get people who think of themselves as low-tax liberals to take another look at the platform and say, hey, this is not low-tax liberalism. This is anarchy or something awfully damn close to it. And taxation is theft? No, it's not theft. I just want to, I remember being in Atlanta. I was very active in the Atlanta organization. The Atlanta Libertarian supper club, so to speak, was much bigger than the party. I mean, we would have monthly meetings and, anywhere from a dozen to 22 people would show up. And we would have very interesting discussions around dinner. And one of the members was the first libertarian I had ever met. And by that time, this was along about 1982, I guess. This guy drew me aside and said, "You know, I would be perfectly happy. In fact, I really think that a flat tax of 10% is about where we need to be." This was the first Libertarian Party member that I had ever met and spoken to that was not a libertarian. He was certainly a classical liberal, but he was no libertarian.
Yeah.
He couldn't have signed that pledge and understood what it meant, and yet I guess he did.
Now, which pledge are you?
Well, I'm talking about the non-aggression principle pledge.
The one that's been around.
Yeah, in other words, when you join the Libertarian Party, you essentially affirm that you don't.
What's the violence or something?
Yeah,
like
you renounce political coercion of all kinds. Yeah, that political coercion. I don't know that violence is in the formulation.
Sure. Okay.
But it's something to the effect that it's the non-aggression principle in another way of saying it. You know, you can defend yourself, but you better not aggress against anybody. And
so I've heard it said that Murray Rothbard said that there were two happiest days of his life. The first one was when he married his wife, and the second one was the day he left the Libertarian Party. I think I've heard that. If I'm quoting correctly, I know the Libertarian Party is one that he said.
I don't remember that. That's not to disparage your memory.
Sure.
I know he left the Libertarian Party for sure. I mean, he did not fade away gently into the night.
Yeah. Now he left in roughly 89 or 90 or somewhere.
Yeah, he was a part of that 89 movement, that Ron Paul Rockwell movement. Yeah, that was again another contingent of conservatives leaving the party. And
conservatives relative to
well, I mean, conservative libertarians is what I mean.
Paleo-libertarians, right?
Yeah, although, I don't know that the word had been coined yet, but It was right on the eve of the paleo-libertarian thing, absolutely. And I think as early as 89, they were getting feints from Buchanan people. I don't know when Buchanan announced his, let's see here. It was in 92, wasn't it? Yeah, that Buchanan first ran. Yeah, because he ran in opposition to the Bush the Bush presidency. And the Bush presidency began in 89. So Buchanan was already making noises. And I think the whole Lou Rockwell crew, including Ron Paul, and of course his chief lieutenant, who was very much a part of that, we're already thinking, hey, we need a bigger stage. This Libertarian Party, they were, terribly dejected again by the results of the presidential campaign of Ron Paul. The fact that it achieved so little. I think he got, 450,000 votes, maybe 600,000 votes, something like that. And they were expecting far more. They were expecting to make some kind of a splash, and they didn't. And so they knew Buchanan could make a bigger splash, even though he wasn't really on their, wasn't really with them.
Sure, yeah.
He was close enough.
The Paleo-Libertarian, Paleoconservative Alliance.
That's right.
John Randolph Club.
Yeah.
All that.
Yeah.
What, from your view, what was the big motivating factor for Rothbard leaving?
Well, I don't know. I didn't, we were not in any kind of communication.
Yeah.
I was reading most of the stuff he was putting out. I don't remember whether he had a newsletter in those years. I don't think he did. I know he did earlier in the 80s.
From my perception, it was kind of a mixture of disdain for what he perceived as this leftism in the party, and also a lack of political success. That was kind of my perception of his.
Well, Rothbard was a very, very sui generis kind of guy. He really was one of a kind. He was a political philosopher, of course. He was an economist. He was a very good historian. But he was an activist. He understood tactics. He understood strategy. And he differentiated both from philosophy. And he was always willing to, and he was willing to get ahead by hook or crook. He joined the New Left, you will recall.
Yeah.
And when he finally decided that they could not be won over to anything approximating libertarianism, he left the New Left. And he attempted the same kind of thing with the right. And he left them in the same kind of disgust. But when he left them, he was literally at the end of his life. So there was very little, he had very little room to turn left again, but I have no doubt that he would have. At least not left in the way that he was in the late 60s. But he had wiped his feet of not paleo-libertarianism, but certainly of paleoconservatism.
Really? So this is very late in his life.
Yeah, before he died at the John Randolph Club, he and his latest acolyte, the German, Hoppe, had decided that there was no convincing paleoconservatives to come on over to a paleo-libertarian perspective.
To me, that seems a little interesting, because I think it seems kind of a mischaracterization of what the alliance was for. It was, from my view, it was kind of an alliance for mutual gain and that kind of thing. Not necessarily. So I guess to me it seems a little. I understand wanting to convert people, but for them, I think maybe.
Well, what kind of mutual gain are you envisioning?
Well, the purpose of that paleo-libertarian, paleo-conservative alliance was to further both their causes, I guess, wasn't it? I mean, among other things,
Well, yeah, I suppose so, but it led to a lot of acrimonious debate.
Oh yeah.
I mean, paleoconservatism and paleo-libertarianism are both highly intellectual movements.
Yeah.
And so you've got to cross your T's and dot your I's, and you have to conform to certain philosophical premises.
Yeah.
Premises.
Yeah.
So I don't think that, they could colloquy together, on a stage, have no problem, I suppose, meeting each other at a pork fest or something of that kind.
Sure.
But they could see that they were not allies.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think ultimately it seemed like both sides were not too interested in concession or diplomacy. I think it was kind of a mutual breaking up, I guess. That was kind of my perception.
Yeah, I think, Rothbard was always talking about cadres.
Mm-hmm.
He knew his Marxist-Leninism.
Yeah.
And, man, he applied it.
Right.
And of course, the cadre had to be philosophically pure.
Mm-hmm.
And he was always wanting to enlarge the cadre, but he was not willing to compromise very much.
Yeah. Okay. Well, finishing out the 80s, what was the attitude and I guess just everything else of the party finishing the 80s?
Well, I think that in the 80s, the party just tread water. That's the best you could say for it. We were not growing. The party almost came apart at the seams in 1983. Mm-hmm. The chairman of the party, can't remember his name, lived in Denver. He made a fantastic fortune in gold in the 70s.
Is this Bloomer or is this?
No, this is not Bloomer.
Else.
Somebody else.
Okay.
He was a young guy. He was the chairman of the party. Maybe was he the chairman or was he the director? I can't remember now which. Might have been the director.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Okay.
We've had a national director ever since, I don't know, 79 or 78 or something like that. And anyway, all the money the fortune he had accumulated in the 70s went down the drain in 80, 81, 82, 83, and he was left, as I understand it. He had to get a job. Mm-hmm. He could no longer deal in gold and pay his bills.
Okay.
And he couldn't afford to be chair. Of course, that's an unpaid position. If he was director, he was at least being paid. So I suppose he was chair. I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
I don't remember his name.
But this was just
and the party was just about ready to collapse
due to internal conflict.
Well, internal conflict. There was a financial crisis, of course, and membership was plummeting.
Due to the infighting? Is that why?
Because of the infighting. Okay. 83 didn't add any members. 84 didn't add any members. Berglund didn't make any waves. He was he garnered the fewest of all presidential candidates, I do believe. Our 92 nominee in some ways did even worse, but I think he actually gained, I think there were more votes cast for libertarians in 92. Maybe the percentage was a bit lower. But anyway, that was a terrible campaign. 88 was, of course, much better. But Ron Paul, gave it the old college try, but, he failed miserably.
And you're saying this 84 David Berglund campaign was abysmal?
Yeah, it was bad.
Okay.
It didn't. Considering the fanfare of the Clark campaign, it was nothing like that.
Okay. Well, I think is there anything else you'd like to say about the 80s, or we can move on to the 90s?
I don't think so. The Clark campaign was, it was a hoot. There were national commercials, beautiful national commercials. I mean, just glorious. Television commercials.
Yeah.
And there was
this national audience thing?
Yeah, this is what David Koch paid for.
Okay.
I mean, we were living on top of the cloud.
Mm-hmm.
It was a glorious time to be a libertarian, and then it was basically pretty much all downhill from there. Mm-hmm. I think we kind of arrested our slide. 85 might have been the lowest year of all, and it was up from there, but it was a very slow grind.
Well, I think we can move on to the 90s unless there's anything else.
I don't think so.
Going into the 90s then, you can start wherever you like.
Well,
I think in looks at 92 there was Andre Marou
and Nancy Lord, right? Those two.
And then 96 was Harry Brown and Jo Jorgensen, which we saw. She ran in 2020 as the LP presidential candidate.
Right.
And then that's it for the 90s.
No, yeah, that was it for the 90s.
In terms of presidential.
Right. Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
And of course, Harry Brown made a big splash. Mm-hmm. And Project Archimedes of the very late 90s resulted in very expensive membership gains. I mean, we topped 30,000 by 2000, I believe. And presently, our membership is, I don't know, 17,000 maybe.
This is yearly additions or yearly?
No, we're talking about a total membership in the party of 32, maybe 33,000 at tops. As a result of, well, in the 90s, our membership peaked, I'm sure, December 31st, 1999, and it went on to grow a little bit more for maybe a year more, maybe 2 years more. But we were doing very well. However, I moved to Ohio in 94 and found the Ohio Party, of all the state parties I had ever seen, it was the weakest ideologically. Okay. I mean, it was big. I mean, it was a big state. There were so-called libertarians living here. But man, they were so-called libertarians. They were classical liberals. I mean, they were people. I mean, when you talked about the necessity of freedom of association, these people would say, "Are you kidding me? Get rid of the '64 Civil Rights Act? Are you crazy? Mm-hmm. There could be no freedom of association in business relationships. Racism is something we have to fight."
Yeah.
And that's the kind of craziness that I ran into in the Ohio Party.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that's a lot of. I think too a book called American Nations, which was I think influenced and inspired by another book, Albion Seed, and the Midlander and Yankee influence in Ohio. I think is probably influencing what you're seeing, what you were just talking about.
Lots of milquetoast lived here, I guess. Huh? Is that what you're trying to say?
Well, yeah. In that book, it talks about how there's one of the regions that American Nations talks
talking about the middle border. Ohio is pretty much in the middle border.
Yes.
Except for the Western Reserve. The northeastern corner of Ohio is Little New England.
Yes,
yeah.
Yes.
Otherwise, it's kind of middle border, what they call the Pennsylvania-Virginian
and German
coterie.
Yes.
And German, yeah.
Yes. Who, in more modern times, they tend to be center-left, I guess, really, in terms of their voting patterns, from what I've seen. But
well, I don't know. I mean, it changes. I mean, Ohio has become increasingly conservative.
As a whole, I'm just talking, as a whole, yeah. But, so the 90s, how would you characterize the 90s overall?
What, you mean in libertarian terms?
Oh, yeah, for the party. Yeah.
Well, I attended a couple of conventions in D.C. I attended the Chicago convention in 90, I don't know, was it 92, 93, probably 93. I don't remember anything remarkable about any of those conventions. I mean, any convention is a blast.
Yeah.
I mean, I can't wait for a national convention because they're just a whole lot of fun. But I don't. I would say that we were against steady state. It was during the 90s, though, that I recognized that we had lost our ideological edge. And at that time, it was in the 90s that I began to see myself as not a mainstream libertarian, but as a radical libertarian. Not that I had changed. I had changed just barely. I mean, I was a little bit more frank about being at least open to the idea of complete anarchism. And I really hadn't been, at least in the 70s or early 80s. But I was very much, I mean, when I saw the party becoming increasingly classically liberal and not even minarchist, I was dejected. What can I say? I argued my case, but I didn't get many converts.
So we're in the 90s, it overall becoming more moderate.
Yeah,
Yeah.
sure.
Now, Brown was pretty...
Brown was I mean, the highlight of the 90s was the 96 campaign, for sure. He did certainly better than Ron Paul did. And he was a much better speaker, of course. And I remember attending rallies that were held in the right. I think it was the Wright State, maybe a large lecture room at Wright State or something like that. Maybe it was University of Dayton. But I remember being at a Dayton rally, a Brown rally, where a couple hundred people in the audience.
That's pretty impressive for
very
LP,
impressive.
I think, right?
Yeah.
Now, what was that Archimedes? What was that?
Project Archimedes.
Okay.
It was I think it was maybe the brainchild of Ron Krickenberger. He was an Atlanta area libertarian that was not there when I arrived. I mean, I arrived fully formed libertarian in Atlanta in 77, I guess it was. And he didn't come along until the middle 80s, I believe. Maybe early 80s. And man, he rose very quickly and became a very leading figure in the party. And I think I know he was very tightly allied with, who was that discredited member of the Brown campaign was run by both the 2000 campaign and the 96 campaign were run by a particular individual. I can't think of his name, but I think he was a Washington, D.C. guy. Ron Krickenberger quickly became best buds with him, and he was very, very, very much involved with, if not the 96 campaign, certainly by 2000. And they were, both of them, promoters of Project Archimedes, which was a way of buying membership, putting ads in Reason Magazine and any number of other semi-libertarian publications, and maybe early websites. I don't know how they were advertising, but they were spending a lot of money on advertising, and they were sending out membership kits, which was an expensive, a whole manila envelope full of goodies to all of these prospects who were not even members, of course. They were just prospects.
Yeah.
And it was a very expensive operation that kind of eventually floundered because of the expense of it all, even though it did gain considerable membership.
Okay. In the 90s, was the LP affected at all by kind of the militia movement and all these other things that were happening? Did it have much influence, or was it really those were really separate events that did not have much impact?
No. Now, the Libertarian group in Atlanta, I said we had monthly meetings of, there were always a dozen people there. On average, I think 18, 19, maybe 20 was fairly normal. And 3, 4, 5 of those were militia types, ultra-conservative types, not really libertarians.
Maybe more paleoconservative, roughly, or something like that.
Yeah, but, the militia, how do you call them paleo-libertarianism is a movement of intellectuals. It's an appreciation of the of Enlightenment writing, really, and of the whole movement of the Age of Reason.
Yeah.
And the militia are a bunch of bomb-throwing know-nothings, really. I mean, these people were not bright. I mean, some of them were above average, but they were not. None of them were intellectuals, or even people like myself who have kind of a pretense to that.
So these people are more in the orbit, but they're not so much in the party at this time, you'd say?
Yeah, yeah, right. A lot of people attended this monthly gathering of libertarians. It was a libertarian supper club, but it lots of people came that were, friends and family and conservative followers, and who knows, maybe even a few left-wing anti-war types.
Sure. So it sounds like the kind of the events of the 90s did not so much bleed into the LP's ethos in terms of militia or these other events so much. You'd say.
I don't think we attracted any militia types in any
notable degree, I guess.
No, I don't recall it. I don't recall any of. I mean, yeah, there were a few individuals, and the only time I ever came in contact with people like that was in the Atlanta context, and that was in the early '80s. Actually, that was not in the '90s. I moved out of Atlanta by '87.
And those militia people were probably not members. They were just kind of in the orbit of libertarians, it sounds like. Probably.
Yeah, they were never members. Yeah. I don't think they were.
And I think throughout the interview, when we're talking about members, we're talking about dues-paying national members, right?
Yeah. That's right.
Okay. So I'd say it sounds like the 90s were becoming more moderate ideologically, with some bright spots with Brown.
It was a kind of a steady state thing. Brown did just a beautiful job of speaking the radical truth in a very calm and marketable way. Yeah.
Well, I think we'll move. Is there anything you'd like to hit with the 90s, or?
I don't think so.
Okay. I think moving on to roughly 2000 to 2010, we've got Harry Brown and Art Oliver in 2000. 2004 we have Michael Badnarik and Richard Campagna. 2008 Bob Barr and Wayne Allen Root. Yeah. And of course we can hit whatever else of note.
Yeah, I don't. I attended some conventions in those years, of course, but I don't think I was a part of any of the nominating conventions. I know I was not in the nominating convention of Brown, either time. I don't think I was. I don't know. I would have to know where he was nominated to know for sure whether I attended. But I did not attend the 2003, or maybe it was a 2004 convention. It was a convention in anticipation of the 2004 election, which was possibly the most, in some ways, the most interesting convention that ever was.
This is 03, you said?
The convention was held. It was held in Atlanta.
Okay.
I was living in Ohio. For some reason, I didn't go. I really wish I did, because there were 3 major candidates running, and it was almost a 3-way tie. There was Russo, the Hollywood producer. Aaron Russo, who was the name candidate. He was my candidate. He was the radical. Mm-hmm. There was Gary Nolan, who was a radio personality. And then there was this Badnarik, who was just a schlub from Dallas. I mean, nobody knew who he was. Mm-hmm. But he made such an impression upon the convention that he actually eked out a victory.
But not on you.
No, had I been there, I would have voted Russo as long as possible. Mm-hmm. And then I probably would have voted for Nolan.
Okay.
After Russo was eliminated. I think Nolan was eliminated first, though. I'm not sure. But Nolan was my second choice.
And Brown's campaign in 2000 was, I think it was fairly successful in getting some people at least interested in the party, I think.
Well, he didn't do as well as he did in 96,
yeah.
But he didn't do a whole lot worse.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know how much he... these presidential campaigns generally don't do much for membership.
Yeah.
I don't know why, but they do some.
Yeah.
We always gain members in a presidential year, and we always lose members the year after. But it doesn't usually cause a great influx of membership.
And I think Brown was pretty notable. He was speaking out about September 11th right after, saying this is a consequence.
Of course, that was after the election.
Right. This is September 11th was a consequence of American foreign policy, and really being very principled, I think.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, that man had the nuts and bolts down just as well as Rothbard, really. I mean, he knew his philosophy, and he could argue his philosophy. But he could market his philosophy in ways that Rothbard really couldn't. I mean, Rothbard could market it to intellectuals. But he was not he was thoroughly Jewish. And he would not appeal to any mainstream person of any ilk. I mean, he would stand out in a Brooklyn crowd, let alone any other.
Well, Brown was an early podcaster as well.
He was? I don't know. I didn't know that.
He was an early podcaster. Yeah, I believe in the 2000s, up until around when he died.
Well, yeah, I would think so.
Yeah.
I don't even remember. Was he died about 2007 or so?
Something like that. Yeah. The Bob Barr. Well, I guess before we do that, I think 2006 was the Portland Plank Massacre. Is that right?
I think that's right.
Okay.
Yeah. That was the high water mark of moderation. That's for sure.
That action.
Absolutely.
Now, was that where they had a ship out? All the delegates were on a ship or something, or maybe that was related to it or something.
Yeah, I mean, all of these conventions have excursions of various kinds.
Okay.
You know, at the New York convention that I attended in, what was it, 70, must have been 78. There was a New York convention, off-year convention. We all went down to the Brooklyn Bridge and heard the history and saw the little museum there. And not all of us, but the point is, there's a lot of opportunities at a libertarian convention for doing more than reading bylaws and passing resolutions.
Okay.
Lots of people go to seminars, and lots of people go out on these excursions. And so it strikes me as being perfectly reasonable that there could have been a boat trip on the Columbia River. Sure.
Yeah. I just remember reading something that it was claimed that there was some, if I remember correctly, that with this 06 event, that there was some underhanded things with trying to get, or maybe it was something else, trying to get candidates, the convention to be held on ship. I don't know. It was something. I don't know if that rings a bell.
Yeah, that doesn't ring any bells to me.
We'll move on from that.
But obviously, I mean, it's the old siren song of moderation. We need numbers.
Yeah.
We need members. We need to make impact.
Right.
And you can't make impact with just the platform.
Because I would say, like 75% of the platform was removed. Was that? Or
Yeah,
like
yeah,
that?
oh yeah, it was
Roughly.
easily. I think the platform was abolished. I don't think they came away with a platform.
Yeah, I don't know about that, but I know at the very least, much was reduced.
Oh, it was greatly reduced.
Yeah.
If it wasn't abolished altogether.
Right. Okay. And then having been possibly brought back.
And it's a wonder that they didn't get the statement of principles has always been under attack. It's a wonder they didn't get that repealed, because they're always trying to repeal that. Every convention, almost every convention, there's a floor vote on the statement of principles.
The one that talks about, as a libertarian, I deny the use of political initiation of aggression or whatever it is.
Something like that. Something like that. Because if you read the thing literally, it's an anarchist document. You can't really argue a minimal state
that
after
statement.
reading. Yeah, right.
Okay. So we see this height of moderation there, and then
I put maybe I should say a minimal state only in the Randian sense of a minimal state, a state that is voluntarily funded.
Regarding the pledge, you're saying,
Yeah.
Okay.
So maybe there could be a minimal state, but certainly there could be no taxation. Absolutely no taxation.
So I think maybe that plays into this Bob Barr, Wayne Allen Root candidacy, which maybe might be characterized as the worst.
Oh no, it was
No.
No. Bob Barr was a downer, of course he was. But in comparison to Berglund, Berglund was a fine libertarian, don't get me wrong.
Yeah.
He was just a piss poor libertarian candidate.
Maybe I should say.
But Maru was probably the worst candidate ever nominated, because he didn't want to campaign.
Okay.
I mean, his staff would put together events for him. He didn't want to attend.
And this is
it was crazy. 92, yeah.
I guess this 08 Bob Barr and Root would probably be the worst ideologically, you'd say? Maybe? I don't know. Or it's at least in the running, right? I would say.
Yeah, it's in the running. Yeah, I would say it... McBride ran as a classical liberal. There's no question about that. And so did Hospers.
Sure.
Hospers was, he was never an objectivist. He was a objectivist curious man. He attended many of her soirees, and he asked penetrating questions and gave scholarly answers. But to call him a real libertarian, I don't know that he was. He was certainly an absolute minimal stater. It's been a while since I perused the book that he wrote. What's the name of that book?
I'm not sure.
I've got it in my bookshelf. I haven't picked it up for a long time. But if he truly were a libertarian, if he truly were an objectivist, and by an objectivist he would be a libertarian, of course, he would nonetheless be. He would not campaign that way. In other words, when you're campaigning for the presidency, unless you're awfully skilled at it, the way that only Brown could be, it's hard not to argue conservative ideas or liberal ideas, because you're always attempting to kind of match the audience, trying to identify with the audience. You're trying to show the audience that, hey, before we can ever abolish taxation, we've got to reduce the budget. We don't ever reduce the budget. It just keeps growing faster than your income every dang year. So that's kind of the way they talk. You're talking as a conservative. Or back in the day when the left was anti-war, you weren't talking about removing 800 military bases from all over the world. I mean, you were talking to, maybe you were mentioning that as an objective, a far-range goal, but first things first. Let's get out of Syria. Can't we do at least one thing? And that's kind of the way libertarian talks in a campaign. I mean, you don't talk political philosophy. You talk about direction.
Because I always had this perception that the Barr Root campaign was this really embarrassing thing. I don't know. Maybe that was just my perception. I don't know.
Well, the embarrassing thing about, Barr was embarrassing, I guess, because he came from an ultra-conservative background. And he was never, I don't think, I mean, if there was one presidential candidate other than McBride that could really be called certainly no libertarian, it would be Barr. McBride was a classical liberal, and I'm sure Barr was too.
Okay.
I mean, maybe in their heart of hearts they were monarchists, but I don't think so.
Okay.
And as for Root's big problem came after the campaign, because he continued to propel himself in libertarian circles, and made a lot of headway.
Yeah.
In the various endeavors that he proceeded to involve himself with. And then came the nomination of Romney, and he decided that, I guess he decided he was a Republican after all.
Kind of an opportunist move, I guess.
Yeah, right.
Huh. Did the War on Terror and all those events, did that help the LP at all, or change the LP stance or anything like that?
Well, I found it interesting that in September of 2001, a poll was taken among Libertarian Party members at that time, and it was almost 50-50. 50% went with Ron Paul. Ron Paul voted for the initiation of force.
In Afghanistan.
In Afghanistan, yeah. Right. In less than a week, he renounced his vote for doing so. He was the first to hop off that train.
Yeah. But
he got on it. I never did. and half of the party never did. But you could see at that point I was already in the extreme half of the party.
Because I mean, some of the Randians and the Reason types and that, a lot of them just kind of lost their minds over the war on terror, didn't they? I mean, just being very pro-war, and I mean, some of the Randians surpassed the neoconservatives in how pro-war they were.
Well, look, the Randians were always anti-communist, and how they ever squared their anti-communist jubilation with no taxation is beyond me.
Right.
I mean, Ayn Rand even gloried in the Apollo program. She just loved spending money on space. And even though, of course, I'm sure she was opposed to the taxation that paid for it, I'm sure she rationalized in her own mind, of all the money I'm paying for these damnable taxes, I better get something out of it. And I can at least glory in the space race. And that's about all she gloried in. I mean, she didn't like the Vietnam War.
Yeah.
And she didn't really care for any of that crap. But you're right, a lot of the Randians did. And particularly after 2001.
Yeah. And even, I think, even to this day.
Sure. Yeah, I don't follow. I mean, there are two Randian organizations that are still plodding along. The Atlas Society, which is the Orthodox group.
Yeah.
And then the Reformed group. What's
ARI.
that?
ARI,
Okay.
And ARI, I think, is really a lot more influential now. My perception, I don't know.
I think it is.
Okay. So I guess, is there anything in the 2000 to 2010, anything else you'd like to hit, or we can move on to the next decade?
Don't think of anything right now.
Okay. Because and then 2010 to 2020, we've got, essentially it's the Johnson decade. We've got Gary Johnson and Jim Gray. And I think Jim Gray went on to...
Jim Gray, that's the man.
He tried to run for presidential in 2020, I think, for LP.
That's right.
And then we've got Gary Johnson and Bill Weld in 2016.
And, Johnson, I thought very highly of the Johnson campaign in 2012. He was able to do the regular libertarian thing in 2012, which was line up some local yokel reporter, usually, and get asked the routine questions. Why are you running? You must know you can't win. Why are you doing it? And so forth and so on. And he honed those points very, very well. There were a limited number of questions asked of him. And he very quickly learned the answers. And he spout them off quite well. I remember seeing him in person at Centerville High School. Were you there by any chance?
I was not, but okay. I was aware that he.
Yeah, and of course, I guess it was a forced it was a. I don't think those students voluntarily came.
Some kind of event.
I think it was some kind of event. I think they, all schools have events where special speakers come and the auditorium is full. And it was that kind of an event. So he spoke before a full auditorium. And he acquitted himself very well. Okay. But 16 was a wholly different animal. He was taken seriously. the first time a libertarian candidate has ever been taken seriously by the mainstream. And so they were asking him the same questions they were asking everybody else. I mean, they were asking the same questions they were asking Hillary. And he did not have the facility of mind to answer off the cuff the questions that were being lobbed at Hillary Clinton, as you can well imagine. You know, the Aleppo question came. Now, I'm no genius, and I'm no news hound either. I follow the news to a much greater degree than most people do, but I'm not in the top 10 percentile of news watchers, that's for sure. But I knew about the Battle of Aleppo. I knew about the siege of Aleppo. Yeah. And he didn't. And I mean, that's something I think he should have known, of course. But if it wasn't Aleppo, it would have been any number of things that he would have been tripped up on. And that was just more embarrassing than some of them, simply because it was such a big thing in the news. Yeah. Now, you walk down the street at that time and talk to people about Aleppo, they wouldn't know Aleppo either.
Right.
But people who regularly listen to newscasts, most of them knew a little bit about Aleppo.
And a large part of it was how he played it too, because he could have played it as saying, he could have played it off in a certain way, but he didn't. He just acted completely oblivious of having any idea, and he didn't. Politicians can play.
Well,
things,
he was.
I mean?
Yeah, he had a way of being very sheepish and apologetic about things. There was nothing slick about Johnson.
Yeah.
He was a cornpone. You'd think he was from Iowa if he weren't from New Mexico.
Yeah. So we have the famous Aleppo moment. In terms of, I think, the probably 2010 to 2020, would you say it was probably more of a maybe a continuation of the LP's, at least at that time, interest in moderates and marketability, you'd say? At least in terms of the majority ruling the party.
Yeah, I don't know that it got any worse. I think we kind of hit a low, strangely enough, during the mid-'90s when Brown was on the rise. And he was certainly no apologetic libertarian, that's for sure. But maybe I'm thinking too much of the Ohio experience, because this Ohio party has always been poor, in my opinion. And it was poor when I came in '94. It's been poor ever since. I don't know what to say. It's so much. I mean, I don't think it's gotten worse. But until the Miesian movement,
right?
And until the Miesian caucus came to the forefront, we were at a low plateau. Maybe not lower than we'd ever been, but probably as low. Actually, we could never get any lower than that Portland convention. That had to be the absolute lowest that we've ever come ideologically. Just like '85 was the lowest we'd ever come in terms of membership and financially.
Okay. Now, in the Trump movement, did that have much impact on the LP or anything like that? Not so much.
I don't know. You tell me. What do you think? I don't think it did.
I think probably not. Nothing too considerable. I think probably.
Now, there were admittedly more people that, look, there were libertarians who voted for. In fact, there have always been, and probably always will be, more real libertarians who vote for the Republican nominee for president than for the libertarian candidate for president.
Sure, yeah.
That's always been the case.
Yeah.
But nonetheless, it is true that when Romney ran, some might have been brought in by Barr simply because Romney was such a cardboard character. Mm-hmm. Whereas when Trump ran, he was such a novelty and such an outlier and such a breath of fresh air, so to speak, that, you know, Johnson probably lost some support, some of his support to Trump that would have gone for him had some mainstream jerk won instead of Trump.
Yeah. Yeah, I was thinking something similar. Yeah. Well, I think 2010 to 2020, I think we can probably move on to roughly the present day unless there's anything else.
Can't think of anything.
So I think just 2020 to 2023, which is when this is being recorded, 2023, we just have the Joe Jorgensen, Spike Cohen campaign in 2020. Did you have any thoughts on that?
Well, once again, we were faced with a paucity of good candidates. Mm-hmm. I didn't really like anybody. I mean, there were fairly poor candidates, and then there were fairly mediocre candidates, and that was pretty much it. I thought that can't think of his name, from El Paso. He was my candidate. He was the Miesian candidate.
Hornberger?
Hornberger, okay. Of course. Hornberger was, of all the candidates who ran, the most ideologically sound by far. He could argue the fine points of the philosophy in ways that Jorgensen couldn't even begin to understand, let alone enunciate. But he did have a very hard job of connecting with people. He was he had the Rothbard syndrome about him. Mm-hmm. He did very, very well with an astute audience, but very poorly with an average audience, just like Rothbard.
Maybe too intellectual, contentious, and radical, maybe, you think?
Yeah, but then think of Brown. Brown could negotiate those waters.
Right. But he was presenting it in such a way that
but nobody had his skill. Rothbard never had his skill. Neither did Hornberger. And but he was my man, and I guess he was yours too.
Hornberger? Yeah, I think so. I think I was
Jorgensen was philosophically sound, but there was nothing exciting about her.
Yeah.
On any level whatsoever. She just couldn't generate any kind of excitement.
It seemed to me that the moderates banded together with some of the other elements to keep Hornberger out, and it was kind of, I don't think the moderates were very happy about having to put their lot in with Jorgensen because she was too radical for them, but I think they chose that because the Miesian, more radical element had gotten so much traction that they had to make that political choice.
Well, I don't know. Do you know of a specific person that you have in mind? I can't think of anyone in particular.
Not necessarily a certain person, but that's just from being involved in the convention. That was what it appeared to me that was happening in terms of politically. So then I coming to the present day, we essentially have the Mises takeover of the party essentially in 22, I think.
Yeah.
And then that takes us to our present day, I think, which is I'm not completely up to date on all the workings of the politics, but it seems like there's kind of been the Mises takeover has been kind of bogged down in internal conflict in politics. They're still in power, but I think they've maybe lost some momentum.
I don't know. It's quite possible that they will. I mean, they certainly will not be able to mount an effort as enthusiastic as they did in 22, in 24. They may come with the numbers, but certainly not the enthusiasm. But I'll tell you what the party has now, and that is the genius of Karen Ann Harlos. That woman is unbelievable. She is the mainspring of human progress. She has the intellect, she has the integrity, and I mean, there are aspects of her personality that repel me, quite honestly. Nonetheless, she is truly the best thing the party has going for it.
Mm-hmm. What is it? Her current position is what?
She's the secretary of the party.
Okay, she still is. Okay. Now she's not officially affiliated with the Mises Caucus, but she does have some relationships with those people.
She's allied. She's a fellow traveler.
Okay. So I guess, do you see the Mises Caucus as staying in power, or do you think they're going to be perhaps just defeated by the bureaucracy of the LP and that kind of thing, in terms of the status quo, moderates, all that? I'm just not sure if they have the staying power to really continue their control.
Well, they own the national board
at the moment.
Yeah, I mean, they could use some. They could lose some regional representation.
Yeah.
At the present time, they even have that.
Yeah.
Let alone the officer class.
Mm-hmm.
They have everything, and so they're not losing out to that bureaucracy because they are the bureaucracy.
Yeah. At the moment, I guess my own thought being, in 10 years, are they still going to be in power? What do you think? Yes. No. It's hard to tell, I guess you'd say.
No, I could see them losing in 24.
Yeah.
It wouldn't take much. It's going to be a Washington D.C. convention. It's going to be a very big convention, probably the biggest convention ever.
Is this 24? You said.
I think it will be, and it's going to attract a lot of participation. Mm-hmm. So it's going to be very difficult to do what the Misesians did last time, because it'll be bigger.
Do you think there's any organized opposition at this time that could give them? No, not so much.
There could be organized opposition, but it's very furtive. It's very undercover.
Okay, and maybe not powerful enough at the time to cause much trouble. Because I think this is probably the most pronounced paleo-libertarian takeover ever in the history of the LP. Would you say this Mises Caucus takeover?
Of course. It's never been done before.
Yeah.
We've never had anybody like Heiss before.
Uh-huh.
I mean, I can't, was there anybody like Heiss before? Now, Harlos is a genius in many ways. Mm-hmm. But does she have the ability to organize people as well as he? I don't think so. Mm-hmm. Man, she can run a meeting, and she understands philosophy, and she's as honest as the day is long. Mm-hmm. And she doesn't take crap from anybody. I mean, there are all kinds of reasons why I consider her to be, better than McCardle herself, better than Heiss himself. But I don't think she doesn't organize the way he did.
Yeah. And they're, as you said, they're allied
Yeah.
Yeah. Do you where do you see the future going for the LP in the future? And pretty hard to say. Both.
Well, I'd say the prospects for the Libertarian Party are probably about as good as they are for the United States of America. I think I'm a little bit more optimistic about the party than I am the nation.
Okay.
I don't know whether that's saying much.
So maybe some mild success in the future, and
I think that we'll do very well in 24, no matter who's nominated.
Yeah.
We've already got tremendous candidates that really know their stuff, and you know, and the two people waiting in the wings are still waiting in the wings. Amash and Smith.
Dave Smith.
Yeah.
Amash is currently a party member. Well, I guess they both are, right?
Oh yeah.
Yeah. And it definitely seems like Smith could get the nomination, I think. It's a possibility for sure.
He would be a very strong contender.
Yeah.
Could he beat Amash? It kind of depends upon, you know, what the Misesians do.
Yeah.
Because I can see the majority of the next convention being non-Mesian. In fact, I would expect it to be non-Mesian.
In 24.
Yeah.
I think that I could definitely see that as a possibility as well. I think my own view in the future is I just don't think the Mises movement. I think it will still be a strong factor, but I just don't think they're going to be able to keep power long term. That's my own view. So I think it sounds like perhaps in the future mild success in terms of just the party, in terms of members, money, etc. Ideologically, where do you think it will go in the future?
Well, you know, this is something that I haven't heard said before, but it's something I firmly believe. And it's a provocative thing, actually, to say this, or even to believe this. I think there is less cause for a Libertarian Party today than ever before in the history of the party.
Why do you say that?
Because in order for a third party to work, it has to operate at cross currents. It cannot be an extreme right party. It cannot be an extreme left party. Because you've heard the analogy, the metaphor of the train. In other words, we're at the station. Get on our train.
Yes.
We're going this way. The other train's going away from us. Now, I know you don't want an abolition of taxation, but you do want fewer taxes. Take our train with us to the next station. You can get off.
Yeah.
But give us a chance.
Sure.
And if that's the kind of party you're running, you're at the end of the station. You're always traveling with that larger party. You're just the rump organization of that party. And that party that we're currently the rump organization to is the Republican Party. If you look at what amounts to the so-called planks of the Republican platform, so much as a platform exists, there really isn't much. The Democratic Party is no longer an anti-war party. Correct. It's no longer a civil liberties party. It's a communist party. I
would say neoliberal, but
I would say it's beyond neoliberal. I mean, it's a socialist party, if not a communist party. I say communist because they don't have any toleration for anything anymore. They are cancel culture supreme.
Sure.
That's communism. That's not social. That's not social democracy. Social democracy is big D democracy. They're not that. So anyway, except for the abortion issue, and there was another issue that came to my mind that we also are cross purposes with. But anyway, until it comes to my mind, the abortion issue is one that I'm pro-life myself. I don't believe in homicide any more than I don't believe in aggression. Obviously, I'm a libertarian, and in almost all cases, I mean, rape is an extraordinary exception.
Sure,
we're talking about a human being that is genetically distinct from his mother, and for that reason, the mother, having caused the fetus in the first place, should be responsible for caring for that fetus as long as it is a fetus. And but I can certainly see the point of view of those such as Walter Block who believe in abortion on principle libertarian grounds.
Block has his own unique position called evictionism.
Evictionism, right.
Which is kind of this very unique position in between pro-life and pro-choice,
Yeah, but the point is, at the present state of engineering,
I get what you're saying.
You cannot the fetus cannot be evicted.
It does.
I'll be an evictionist too once it becomes technologically possible.
I get what you're saying. So it kind of sounds like you're saying that due to there just isn't a good enough political climate.
I'm saying that since Trump became the nominee, now there is one thing that there is one element of the new Republican Party that we have turned away from, and that is, it didn't take much at all for Republicans to line up behind Trump no matter what he was saying. If he was saying, grab the pussy, they were happy to grab the pussy themselves. I mean, that's how enthusiastic they were for the bastard. So when he said, we need tariffs, they said, we don't believe in free enterprise. We believe in tariffs. So we are working at cross purposes, if not in abortion entirely, certainly with the tariff issue. But that's about it. Otherwise, we're just extreme Republicans.
So
the big things that really ruined us was the anti-war issue and the civil liberties issue. If we were still in line with the Democratic Party philosophy, basically, I mean, they were always much weaker than we were. But nonetheless, we could tell a Democrat, hey, we know you're not entirely for civil liberties, but go with us for a couple of stations down the way. Let's at least get rid of the Patriot Act. Let's pull can't we at least get out of Syria? Can't we at least abolish one of the 800 bases around the world? Can't we reduce the Pentagon by 0.5%?
I think maybe to summarize, I think what you're saying is that the Democrats have become so opposed to anything that LP has to say, and some Republicans at least have kind of taken the dissident right path and become more similar to LP. It's just created a climate that's maybe much more difficult.
It's a more difficult climate because unless we're working at cross purpose, unless we can really say to people, hey, we're not conservatives. Let me tell you why. We're not liberals. Let me tell you why. Unless we can say that and make the case and win the argument, then there isn't a real good reason for our being.
And I think I kind of see the party in the future taking more of a moderate / left path. I think that's kind of where I see the party going. I think due to the history of the LP and that kind of thing, that the Mises Caucus has been able to reignite some of this Ron Paul movement, but I think the Ron Paul movement, for reasons that could be gotten into, could never be completely recreated in the LP. I think you probably agree with that. So,
yeah, you're right. It could never. Well, let me put it to you this way. If our candidate were a part of the nationwide debate system,
yeah, maybe that.
And that has almost happened on occasion.
Right.
If that were to happen, then you could have a Ron Paul moment that would give us, instead of 1 or 2% of the vote, 10, 15, maybe even 18, 19% of the vote.
And this is in no way is making, on my part, making an ideological statement or a statement on the character or the people in the Mises Caucus movement or that kind of thing. But I do think that I think that movement is going to have a lot of difficulties and eventually lose power. I've said that already, but
you can't jack up that kind of enthusiasm and sustain it. If you're on the winning side, there's just no reason for that kind of enthusiasm. I mean, the party was in a really bad shape. I mean, I don't need to tell you. All you got to do is look up Pink Flame of Liberty and Karen Ann Harlow's and look at the last 2 years of what she's recorded on her podcasts to know how sick this party was.
Oh yeah, there was a corruption, and I mean, that's another thing too. There's been a lot of corruption and just infighting and crazy stuff going on.
And you can't whip up that kind of enthusiasm,
right?
Given the level of even keel kind of momentum we have at the present time.
Yeah, I think it's very difficult to reignite the Ron Paul movement because it in large part died out. That's one problem.
Well, it could be reignited as easily as it was ignited. I mean, given the proper context.
Yeah.
Now, that was let's face it, that was a lightning bolt in a bottle.
Yeah.
I mean, it doesn't happen every day.
Yeah.
It doesn't happen every year or even every century. And it's certainly not likely to happen in your lifetime, let alone my lifetime. But it could.
I think two of the problems with the Mises Caucus strategy, one was that I think their vision was limited to just taking over the party, and once they had completed that vision, they had some other goals, but the big vision was takeover. It wasn't trying to make further success. And I think the other issue was that this is just from a strategic standpoint, I think the even more success lay even further to the right. And I'm just talking in terms of strategic success, in terms of votes and that kind of thing, which is what Rothbard tried to do in the 90s. But I think the LP and also the people in the Mises Caucus never had the true interest in even being, I would say, stalwart paleo-libertarians. I don't think they were. I would not consider them really rock-ribbed paleo-libertarians. I mean, in the vein of Lou
Do you think that Ron Paul's followers are, let's face it, mostly conservative?
They're definitely right-leaning.
Oh yeah, they're right-leaning.
I wouldn't say,
but again, when you look at the left and right, you can make a very good case that libertarianism is right-leaning.
Sure.
In a way that you could not make that case 20 years ago, let alone 50 years ago.
Yeah.
At the present time, it probably. I mean, you can still make a case that it isn't, but it's much harder than it ever has been before.
That's kind of the ironic thing, I think, is oftentimes aesthetically and in the mainstream, the left viewpoint gets stated by places like Cato and Reason, but I think in reality, in terms of actual numbers, right libertarians hold the day. I think, and we'll start to wrap up here. Of course, you can say whatever you'd like in terms to finish up. I think one observation I would have is I think Konkin, I think, is vindicated, at least partially, I would say, in terms of, I see some of the biggest libertarian successes as the cryptocurrency movement and the firearms, specifically 3D printing. Those are, in my view, those are some of the biggest successes. I mean, you've got things like Uber and some other tech stuff, but I think the cryptocurrency and 3D printing of weapons, I think cryptocurrency has really created a lifeline in a time of just, I would say, potentially apocalyptic tyranny in the future, and the cryptocurrency is a ray of hope in that.
You don't think ways can be found to essentially negate it by the state?
Oh, there's tons of problems in terms of crackdown on cryptocurrency, and I think a lot of people are much too optimistic, and they put a messianic figure almost to the cryptocurrency. But there's at least some.
I mean, it's always going to be possible to stash money away. I mean, that's going to be very difficult to control.
Yes,
but in order to get it out and to use it,
it's
another thing entirely.
It's definitely a challenge. Yeah, I mean, the tyrants of the world are trying to push the end of cash and central bank digital currencies and all that. But I think in large part the 3D printing revolution has really ended the gun control debate. I think, honestly, I really see the gun control debate as really, it's pretty ridiculous now, because the ability to 3D print, to create your own weapons through 3D printing, and even things up to including mortars and rocket launchers and that kind of thing. So I think that those two things, I think, are very encouraging.
Yeah, but I'll tell you what the state can do.
The state I totally agree with.
The state can do what Canada is presently doing, making defense illegal.
Yeah.
That is what the Democratic Party would sorely love to do.
Oh, yeah.
Making it impossible to defend yourself.
I agree.
And all you got to do is, hey, you shoot somebody, I don't care what kind of a crumb bum he is.
Yeah.
You're going to go to jail.
Yeah. Yeah, it's
I don't care whether he raped your wife or killed 5 of your children. You're still going to go to jail for it.
Yeah, and I totally agree with you. I think the future is extremely challenging for the hope for human freedom and frankly the human race in general. James Corbett has come out and said, and I'm not saying he's a prophet or anything, but he's said that essentially, who's to know, right, for the future? But he's saying humanity has 10 years left to get things together before things really start to clamp down. And there's a lot of challenges ahead, and I totally agree with you in terms of how much the state can do. At least we have some things like cryptocurrency and 3D printing and the spread of these ideas and things like that to carry us forward. So I think in conclusion, is there anything else you'd like to say? I do have one question before we hit that. Were you ever able to meet Rand?
I never saw Ayn Rand.
Okay.
No.
And you can continue with any final thoughts or anything else you'd like to talk about?
No, I don't know how many times I've met Rothbard, but I must have seen him in person easily 5 or 6 times, spoken with him in person. But Other luminaries, well, those are the two big ones, aren't they? They don't get bigger than Rand and Rothbard, I suppose.
Did you ever meet Russo, Aaron Russo?
Never met Aaron Russo, but he was a flash in the pan.
Mm-hmm.
You know, he came out of nowhere, and then of course he returned to nowhere. He died very quickly after that campaign.
Well, I think one thing I would say in just to get your thoughts, I think there's a lot of good things I could say about the libertarian movement. It does seem to me that it has become, there's definitely an element of stagnation. I think that's come. I'm not saying everybody's stagnant or anything like that, but I think.
Well, it's not. Yeah, it hasn't been dynamic since 1980. It reached its apogee with the Clark campaign.
Yeah,
and then of course it's been up and down since then. There was a long downward slide through the 80s, basically, and then it's been kind of steady state since then. I mean, it's been up and down.
Yeah. I think what I'd like to see is libertarians drawing on other strands of thought. I mean, you see this some with Malice, with his talking with Mencius Moldbug, Curtis Yarwood.
Yeah.
I really like to see them trying to mix things up. Tho Bishop has had a lot of success from what I've seen of reaching out to Republicans.
Who was that?
Tho Bishop. He's a gentleman in Florida, and he has some affiliation with. He appears on some Mises videos and that kind of thing. I believe, but Jeff Dice, I had read recently. He said something to the effect of, "I'm not sure if the title libertarian, how." Something like how useful it is anymore. I think kind of seeing
what's the reason behind this?
I think his reasoning was that libertarianism has kind of been pigeonholed into a leftist frame. I think that was part of his reasoning, but also I think just the divisions between left and right, and
Oh, I don't think that amounts to hill of beans.
Yeah. Well, I think it's just it's an interesting perspective. Like I said, I just like to see drawing.
Get your left-wing libertarian and your right-wing libertarian, and let's bring on the platform and talk about the planks of the platform.
Yeah.
See where they stand,
yeah.
and we can flush out the imposter. If that's the case, I think, when you're talking about left and right, you're really talking about affectations and aesthetics.
Partially. But like I said, I definitely like that. At least I like to see libertarians bringing in other strains of thought, new ideas.
Well, that's always good.
Yeah.
I mean, your point about Michael Malice is a very good one. Let's face it, he has a way of talking about anarchism that nobody, historically or in the current realm, has ever quite talked about in that manner.
And I think, and this is coming from someone who does not consider themselves on the left at all, but I give credit where credit is due to the left libertarians. I think they were right in terms of the criticism. I think one of the problems I've seen from right libertarians is too much of a infatuation with corporations, too much of a favoring of the rich. And that's not, I'm not saying, we need to tax the rich or anything, but there's always been a sort of something, too much of a affinity for the super rich and corporations and that kind of thing. I've seen.
Well, okay. You've spoken to me about this before. I don't have that same sense. That's all I can say.
Yeah.
Now, there was something of that flavor in Ayn Rand, but when she had a chance to explain herself well enough, she disabused herself of that charge.
Oh yeah, I think it's definitely a complicated issue that you can delve into, and
I mean, she talked about defending big business. Don't get me wrong.
Yeah.
But big business is not necessarily corporatism. You can become. Chick-fil-A can become a gigantic operation without bowing and scraping to the state.
Yeah, I think it's extremely.
They can
difficult.
refuse all state contracts and still succeed.
I think it's extremely difficult now. I that would be one encouragement I would give to. I do think there's some very interesting things from left libertarians, I would say.
I do too.
Yeah.
No doubt about
and that's
it.
That's coming from somebody who's
who's more right.
I am on the right for sure. I think another thing that libertarians need to watch out for is how their, at least, like I said, from my perspective, their affinity for the rich and corporations, this kind of thing, can be hijacked to globalist ends and those kinds of things, so that it appears that what they're getting is libertarianism, but what it really is the growth of ultimately corporatism and
that comes down to this big issue of decentralization. In other words, you've got the reason types who are emphatic about their celebration for cosmopolitanism, for one worldism.
Yeah.
But they're not talking about the one world that Klaus Schwab is talking about. That's for sure.
It is different. Yeah,
it's
different.
Entirely different.
Yeah.
It can be. You can have a cosmopolitan society with laissez-faire.
Sure. Yeah, I get what you're saying. I think my thought is that the elite in power are quite nefarious and intelligent, and they have plans and things that are going to look very appealing to many libertarians and that kind of thing, that are going to be put forward. And
artificial intelligence looks pretty good until you see what the ultimate aim is. And of course, many believe that ultimate aim cannot be achieved.
Yeah.
Can you have synthetic consciousness? Lots of people say no way. But if it can happen, then we are doomed.
Yeah, I think AI is a tremendous threat, and I think if you delving into the spiritual realm, I think it's even more of a threat of it being hijacked for its own ends. We're getting into all sorts of that.
Sure. Hell, the government Pentagon can manufacture millions and millions of robot dogs that can kill you as soon as you step out of your house.
Yeah, I think the future. I think many people do not grasp the amount of power that the elite have now, and also just the technological changes that are going to come in the future and are happening now, and the technology that they already have that the people do not know about.
Yeah.
But I think I'll wrap it up here. Bruce, thank you. I think this was really good. Any final thoughts or anything that you'd like to advertise or anything like that?
No, let's just end on that note.
All right. Thank you.